Trump is expecting a softer debate tonight, he says, but he likely won't get one. Trump campaign advisor, campaign manager Corey Lewandowski tells me they understand Rubio's political life is on the line tonight and that he will be aggressive. A top Rubio advisor tells me the Florida senator will avoid those personal attacks on Trump's tanning methods and hand size, but they still see Trump in his business record as fair game, meaning more hits on Trump University, Trump Steaks, Trump Water, and so on. Trump is all but predicting that Marco Rubio is finished in Florida, finished in this race, and that was his message at his last rally in North Carolina. Here's what he had to say.
Little Marco would say, I think he's gone. I think he's gone, but who knows? You never know. But Marco, they hate him in Florida. I want to tell you, in Florida, he doesn't show up to vote. They elected a senator, and he's got the worst voting record in the last 15, 20 years in the United States Senate. What kind of a representative? Who wants to vote for him? I mean, if I don't beat Marco in Florida, because Florida's my place, I love Florida.
Now, Donald Trump is looking for a double knockout punch next Tuesday on Rubio in Florida, but also on John Kasich in Ohio. And Trump is now getting more aggressive on Kasich, Wolf, calling him an absentee governor. Back in Ohio, Wolf, we have not heard attacks like that from Donald Trump on John Kasich up until this point in the campaign. It means he's getting nervous, Wolf.
Jim, there was some violence at Trump's event. What happened?
That's right. Check out this YouTube video of a protester. We can put it up on screen. He was being led out of the rally last night by law enforcement officials. This was last night in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And as the protester is leaving the arena, he is sucker punched by a Trump supporter there in the crowd. Police in Fayetteville say that Trump supporter has been arrested and the case is under investigation. We should point out, Wolf, Trump has dismissed these scuffles. As a matter of fact, he did just last Saturday to me. He's dismissing these scuffles at his rallies as something that just happens from time to time, considering the size of the crowds that he draws at these events. And we should point out that the Trump campaign always makes an announcement before these rallies get started. We've heard him time and again saying, please don't touch the protesters. That obviously did not happen last night. And Wolf, in a statement from the local sheriff's department there in Fayetteville, the sheriff had some choice words for this suspect, saying, quote, no one should be subjected to such a cowardly act. It's hard to argue with that, Wolf.
It certainly is. All right, Jim Acosta, thank you very much. Marco Rubio has voiced regret for some of his own comments about Donald Trump. His personal attacks or counterattacks haven't helped at the polls either. Let's bring in our senior political reporter, Manu Raju. Manu, Rubio's campaign seems to be in big trouble right now. What do you expect we'll hear from him tonight?
Well, I think you'll hear various messages from Marco Rubio. One, to remind voters why they actually elected him in 2010. That's what I'm told from senior Rubio officials. They're going to try to reconnect with voters, explain to them his conservative principles, his ideas, and in a lot of some of that lofty rhetoric that we've heard in the past. But watch him to still go pretty aggressively at Donald Trump and make the case to Florida voters that this is the state that can stop Donald Trump. And what does that mean for Marco Rubio? He's going to say voting for John Kasich or voting for Ted Cruz here is effectively a vote for Donald Trump. In addition to talking about his business record, watch for Marco Rubio to try to draw out Donald Trump on policy issues, try to have him fill in the blanks. That's going to be a key thing that Rubio officials believe have been effective in using against Donald Trump in the past, including in the debate that you moderated, Wolf, in Houston over the health care issue. Those are the types of attacks that Rubio will launch tonight, so he will absolutely be aggressive because they know this is a do-or-die state for Marco Rubio.
Certainly is, Manu. You also cover Congress for us, where Senator Rubio, he has a lot of support from his fellow Republican senators. What are you hearing from them?
Yeah, I spent yesterday speaking to a lot of those Republican senators, very anxious, Wolf. They believe that Rubio is probably could go down on Tuesday, and that could be the end of the road of his campaign. And if Kasich doesn't win Ohio, then it's the end of the road of his. They're debating who's better, Trump or Ted Cruz, and two schools of thought are emerging. On the Cruz front, they believe he's a true Republican. He's very predictable. We know what he'll say in the election, come the general election, even if he's very conservative. But on Trump, even though he is unpredictable, to say the least, at the very least, a lot of people believe he can bring out new voters to the polls. I talked to Richard Burr, he's a senator from North Carolina up for re-election. He said to me, I'm fine running with Donald Trump. So there's a clear division with the party on what to do if Marco Rubio and John Kasich both go down, Wolf.
We'll see what happens in North Carolina, the Republican primary there. That's next Tuesday as well. Manu, thank you very much. Joining us now, the national spokeswoman for the Trump campaign, Katrina Pearson. Katrina, thanks very much for joining us. And I want to start with a little clip from the CNN interview that Donald Trump did with Anderson Cooper last night. It's getting a lot of buzz out there. Listen to this.
Do you think Islam is at war with the West?
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
Does he regret saying Islam hates us as opposed to radical Islam or extremist Islam? He basically said Islam hates us.
Well, I don't think that he regrets saying it when the perception is the reality, when you see 10,000s of Muslims in a room chanting death to America in several places. We are talking about Islam, and you're right, Wolf, it is radical Islamic extremists that do participate in these types of things. But the bigger picture here is we are so controlled by political correctness. We've allowed this propaganda to spread all through the country that this is a religion of peace. When we see today that countries like Britain and France and even Germany now and Sweden, where they're having a head-on collision with the truth, and that we have to start talking about this in a broader perspective rather than separating the idea, because we have a major problem going on in this country as we are continuing to bring thousands of refugees into this country that we know have been infiltrated by ISIS.
But he didn't say some Muslims. He didn't say radical Muslims. There are 1.6 billion Muslims worldwide, and many of them, most of them, I dare say, don't hate the United States, don't hate Americans. In fact, America has great friends in the Muslim world, like King Abdullah of Jordan, for example, a great ally.
Well, right. I mean, it does go both ways, and you're absolutely right about that. But we also have hundreds of millions of Muslims in the world who agree with these terrorist sentiments and acts. And here in the United States, and I'll point to an article written by Ben Shapiro in 2014 titled "The Myth of the Tiny Radical Muslim Minority," there's tons of statistics in there, particularly noting in 2013 a Pew Research poll of Muslims here in the United States where 13% approve of using violence to defend jihad and 19% approve of al-Qaeda. So we have a problem, particularly in the United States, when you have 250,000 to 570,000 Muslims here in the United States that sympathize with terrorism, even though they may not be themselves the one to engage.
But lumping them all together, that's a problem, Katrina. Consider the case of Kareem Rashad Sultan Khan, who was born in New Jersey to immigrants. He joined the U.S. Army after 9/11 to defend our country. He was killed in Iraq in 2007. Doesn't Donald Trump think that, how can he think that all Muslims, for any to differentiate, hate the United States, hate Americans?
Well, that's not what he said. He was talking about Islam specifically, and you're absolutely right. There is a difference, and he didn't use the differentiation word. But that's exactly what he's talking about, and most Americans understand that. We know that people in our world, in the punditry class and in the ivory towers that make the policy, they want to hear these words that distinguish the difference. But Mr. Trump is speaking very plainly. There is a difference between Islam and radical Islam, and some would even argue that there isn't. But the point here is to point out the idea that we have a serious problem that isn't being addressed by the current administration, and Mr. Trump wants to resolve the issue, and no other candidate is willing to get out there and take up the fight.
All right, I think you'll agree, though, with hindsight, he should have said radical Islam or extremist Islam as opposed to just Islam, right?
Well, of course, if he would have said that, we wouldn't be having this discussion today, but I'm happy to clarify anytime, Wolf.
All right, let's talk about Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. They had a debate last night, and they were asked bluntly if they believe Donald Trump is a racist. They didn't say no, but they went out to criticize Trump. Could this be a major line of attack from either one of these candidates, whoever gets the Democratic nomination?
No, I think by the time it gets to November, people are going to be tired of hearing the racist charge and the sexist charge. I mean, everyone's tired of hearing that already. Anyone who knows Mr. Trump knows Mr. Trump isn't a racist. And in fact, you'd have to be blind to assume that he is at this point. So no, I think it's really going to be one of those things that going into the general, highlighting the differences between a Trump administration and a Clinton or even Sanders administration for that matter, is really going to show that Mr. Trump is for the people. There is no political agenda. There are no people to pay back. There isn't Wall Street or super PACs or anyone else that Mr. Trump cares about, because he's the only candidate that is personally invested in the success or failure in this country.
Katrina, stand by. We have more to discuss, including how Donald Trump is preparing for tonight's History on the